Hello there, CLAT aspirants. This is Ritik Sinha from Acetheclat, and let's start with our video lesson. In this video lesson, I will try and teach you how to read an editorial effectively, okay? So, this editorial is about the Election Commission's curbs, COVID-19 curbs that they have placed against in the West Bengal elections. So broadly, the idea is about the idea of the editor is that the ECI woke up late to the effects the long campaign in Bengal had on public health. So they have, the Election Commission of India have probably taken the right steps right now, but they have come rather late, as pointed out by the Election Commission of India. So moving ahead, it says that the Election Commission of India's decision to restrict campaigning for the remaining two phases of the West Bengal Assembly election is an instance of wisdom dawning late. So it may be a wise decision, but it has definitely not come on time, right? Nevertheless, it says it will help limit the public health damage to what has already caused. Nevertheless, it will help limit the public health damage to what was already caused by an unreasonably extended election cycle in the state during the pandemic. So the election cycle that the Election Commission of India, sort of put forth in the West Bengal elections is unreasonably extended, as pointed out by the author. After the Calcutta High Court sought an action taken report on what measures it was adopting in the context of the spreading pandemic, the Election Commission has ordered the cancellation of all rallies and roadshows. Only meetings that are attended by no more than 500 people will be allowed now. So, as you can see, only after the Calcutta High Court sought an action taken report did the Election Commission, took these steps of cancelling all rallies and road shows. Right now, only meetings that are attended by no more than 500 people will be allowed. And in its order, the Election Commission noted with anguish that parties and candidates were not adhering to the safety protocols laid out by the government or by Election Commission itself. Okay. Daily campaign hours had already been cut, and campaigning was to stop 72 hours prior to polling instead of 48 hours as per an earlier directive. So guys, note that between these lines we came to know that before prior to polling, 48 hours prior to polling, the campaign needs to stop, right? So this is how you sort of garner piece of information from an editorial while reading it from current affairs perspective. Okay, normally I suggest the students to read editorial from critical reasoning perspective, from the perspective of just increasing your comprehension ability. I sort of advise them, but sometimes you may also want to garner additional piece of information or some piece of information that may be vital. A bit of foresight would have been more helpful from the Election Commission's part. So this is one of the arguments. Okay, this is the claim, and to support his claim, the author says that the state is recording high volumes or high numbers of infection. Bengal's health infrastructure is not robust, and all parties. Okay, Bengal's health infrastructure is not robust to deal with a heavy surge. All parties organized rallies amid the pandemic, but parties other than the BJP have been calling for clubbing the last phases together. Okay, so all parties did organize the rallies during the pandemic, but right now only BJP is the one that is sort of opposing the clubbing together of elections, the last phase of elections. In the face of the Election Commission's refusal to do so, the Congress, the TMC and the left had discontinued big rallies. So they sort of organized a protest by discontinuing with big rallies when the election commission refused to do so. Do so means so is referred to as to club together the last phases of the election. In the second paragraph, so broadly the main idea of this first paragraph is some of the claims made over here is that a bit of foresight would have been more helpful, right? Instance of wisdom dawning late. This decision might be rational but has come late. And lastly, the author or she also says that parties other than the BJP have been calling for clubbing the last phases of elections together. Okay. Second paragraph starts by the only party that did not have a problem with the election being spread over 8 phases over 5 weeks has been the BJP. So, and allegations that this clubbing last phases, the only party that did not have the problem was the BJP, and allegations that this helped the BJP that was dependent on its star campaigners and workers from other states moving from one region to the next carries weight. So these allegations does carry some weight, right? It is ironic, mind you, or please note that it is ironic that the BJP that argues for clubbing together all elections across the country has been happy about such a prolonged process in Bengal. So, in some way, the author is criticizing the BJP, the ambiguousness of the mindset of the BJP, that on the one hand, when the BJP sort of argues for clubbing together the elections in other parts of the country, in this part of the country, in West Bengal, they have been happy about such a prolonged process, or what the author has also called an unreasonable extended election cycle. Even after it became evident that the new surge was turning out to be severe, the BJP continued with big rallies in the state. So as you can infer now, the author is criticizing the leadership of BJP, the actions taken by BJP. Prime Minister Narendra Modi gloated about massive turnouts at his rallies, or boasted about massive turnout in his rallies. BJP leaders declared that there was no correlation between rally turnouts and the spread of the pandemic. Now that is a problem. When the BJP leaders declared that there was no correlation between rally turnouts and the spread of the pandemic. It is not, and the author rightly points out. Now, whether he's right or not is my opinion, but he points out that India did not sleepwalk into this disaster. Okay, India did not sleepwalk into this disaster, and it was dragged in a boisterous procession of triumphalism and hubris by the political leadership. So it is not that India, carried itself to this disaster. The second wave is, as we all know, the second wave has been devastating and has been a disaster. And the author points out that this did not happen on its own. Okay, there were some reasons, and political leadership. He has put some questions on the political leadership over here. He or she, the author. Okay. The unusual and unreasonable schedule of the Bengal election during the pandemic was unwise and avoidable. So the schedule of the Bengal election was unwise and avoidable. These are one of his last arguments. He further says that the Elections Commission's measures at the last moment can be of limited help only, and the lack of foresight while drawing up the schedule and monitoring the campaign bordered on complicity in the surge of new infections. Bordered on complicity मतलब अगर इससे ज़्यादा if there was more lack of foresight, it could have been called illegal as well, the actions taken by the Election Commission. I think the passage is clear, right? Some of the arguments made or the claims made are that a bit of foresight was needed, or it could have been more helpful. The lack of foresight, bordered on complicity. It is not that India sleepwalked into this disaster, and sort of the author has criticized the BJP leadership and the BJP party as well. Right. So the schedule of the Bengal election was unwise and avoidable. That is also one of the claims made by the author. And this author makes some rational arguments, right? Because यहाँ पे अगर तुम देखो, ये अगर claim है तो उसे author ने support करने के लिए evidence भी दिया है that the state is recording high number of infections. Due to this lack of foresight, the state is recording high number of infections, and Bengal's health infrastructure is not robust to deal with a heavy surge. Right. We also should note that the author keeps coming back to his main argument that the ECI woke up late to the ill effects the long campaign in Bengal had on public health. So the unreasonably long campaign that Bengal had, sort of had ill effects, and the ECI was, as said, late in taking decisions. I think these are words that you need to note down as in look them up on Google, and then note their meaning down if needed. Right. And I think that was all needed to be said. You should note as well that these words, nevertheless ironic, sometimes change the course of the arguments that are being made, right? Because over here he says that instance of wisdom is dawning late. The wise decision came late, but he says that nevertheless, in spite of that, it will help limit the public health damage. I think that should be the main focus, or the main takeaway from this video lesson. That these are not indicator words. I could not find any such indicator words right here, right? But they in a way change the course of action in which the argument is proceeding. Alright, you should also focus on the claims and premises, and that should be your takeaway, and I think you should be good to go after you do all these things. So I thank each one of you for being with me till this very end. This is Ritik, and if you want to have a one-on-one session with me, you may find the link. You may book your session from the first link of the description box. And yeah, this is Ritik Sinha signing off. If you found the information useful, please press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. And very importantly, share this video lesson with your fellow CLAT aspirants. It might be helpful to them as well, right? So thank you and have a good day.